Hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast. And today's episode, I'm going to give you a heads up right out of the gates. It's going to be a two-parter because this conversation is that good, it's that deep, it's that rich. This is someone who is a very, very special individual and is an entrepreneur like you would not believe. Her name is Rhiannon Rosalind. She is the creator and CEO of Conscious Economics. We're going to tell you a bit more what that is all about and the vision for this business and organization that she runs that is blessing many, many people. She had been working with the Economic Club for Canada as a CEO, where they had people on their stage such as Bill Clinton and Michelle Obama and Barack Obama. So she has been around, if you will. She's planned events for years, and she is just an incredible individual. I think the most important thing for you to know as we head into this conversation is who she is. I think you're going to love who this person is. She is a person of great faithfulness, of creativity, of resiliency, and you'll hear all of that and more in her story. Friends, get ready to be inspired. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Good News Podcast. So glad that you could join us today. We have an amazing guest that I know you're going to not only enjoy, but be incredibly inspired by. Rhiannon, we've just been talking here. I felt like we've done about 3 podcasts, just getting ready here, getting set up. Yeah, for sure. Rhiannon, love who you are, what you bring to this conversation and to this world, to be honest. Let's dive in. Let's start with social economics and just conscious economics and how that got going and the vision behind that and what that's all about. Just really love what it's about.
Thank you so much. So Conscious Economics is a platform in Canada that is really preparing people for the new economy. And when we say the new economy, what does that mean? Well, for us, it means the intersection of a few things working in harmony. The well-being of people, the well-being of the planet, the well-being of business and using business as a vehicle for good, and the well-being of art and creativity and how those things intersect. And that forms the basis of what we call the conscious economy. Now, traditionally, when you think about the economy, when you think about business, we don't always see the well-being of people at the forefront of that. We don't see the well-being of the planet always being considered, although that may be changing now. And a lot of the times we have these notions around money and business, like, money is evil, or business is all about greed or power. And so we want to really change that, and we want to empower new people in that space. And how that all started, that's a story. So I don't know if you want to get into it. I do,
because we got into that a little bit before we started. I think it's an amazing story how you've shifted gears through the pandemic. And my sense is this has been a piece of work that's been growing in you over the years. So let's go back and kind of get how we got here.
I think so, because in order to really understand where this comes from, you do have to go a little bit back. So I'm going to take you back to go forward. So I became, at 26 years old, the CEO and president of a platform called the Economic Club of Canada. And this is the country's largest national business platform in the country. Now, being 26 years old, a young woman coming into that role, that makes no sense. It's like, how does that happen? And it was a really difficult situation that happened. So I was hired straight out of university. I was the first in my family to finish high school and to go to university. And when I got to university, I became really, really interested in the study of systems, the study of people, understanding systems of oppression, understanding colonization. How do these things work? And I was hired in an entry-level event coordinator position straight out of 3 weeks before graduating, got a job offer, finished my undergrad, and went in and started working. And my first day on the job, we were hosting Bill Clinton, the former president of the United States. So here I am. I'm this young woman who grew up in, a blue-collar family. We didn't have a whole lot in terms of finance. I was an only child. I had a lot of difficulty in my younger years in school. I got sort of lost and was upset, I think, and trying to find my own way. And there was a lot of stuff going on in my household, and my mom was dealing with things and my other family members. And I got caught up in a pretty bad cycle very early on. And I had my first, I call it awakening, at 15. And so at 15 years old, I was kicked out of school. I was dating a gentleman who was 26 years old and was involved in drugs and everything else. And I woke up one morning after a crazy night of partying, and I went and I was washing my hands, and I caught a glimpse of my own eyes. And I don't know what happened, but I couldn't look away from myself. And as I looked into my own eyes, I saw, or I felt, a remembering that this isn't what I'm here to do. And so I felt like I had to get out of the house. I needed to go into nature. I took a little piece of paper and a pen, crying feverishly. Just something came over me, and my hand just started to write. And I started to write goals for myself.
Wow.
It was the first time.
How old are you?
I was 15.
Wow.
It was the first time I've ever done that. And I said, I have to be the first person in my family to get an education. I'm going to end up in the exact same place that I'm so angry about right now. And so I made a commitment to myself that day that I was going to figure it out. And it wasn't easy because I was really behind. And but I got back in. I ended up finishing high school, being on the honor roll in the end, getting into university, paying my own way, doing these things. And so for me to end up in this room with Bill Clinton, 2 weeks after graduation, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, how the heck did I end up here? So I took it upon myself to learn everything I possibly could. I was like, if I'm going to be an entry-level events coordinator for this organization, I'm going to be the best entry-level events coordinator they've ever seen.
Cool.
So I started to try and learn the ropes. And because of the way I grew up, I was always comfortable with talking with many people. I was, I learned a lot kind of being on the streets in those early years and just really kind of figuring things out. And so I applied some of those skills along with my education. And I was a pretty good salesperson. So I started to bring more and more ideas into the organization. And they kept promoting me. Well, eventually, our CEO decided he wanted to run for public office. And this is now, fast forward, we're in the 2011 federal election. And they have asked me to step in to run the organization. So I've gone up the ladder over the years.
You're 26
and I'm 26 though.
Wow.
And so I've been there for a few years, and I'm really good at my job. I'm really good at bringing in business to the organization. And so they say, he's not going to win. So if you could step in and just keep things going, okay, then
it's just an interim position.
It's just an interim position. He's definitely not going to win. And then, we'll come back and it'll all be good. And I didn't think much of it. I thought, I can do that. I think I can do that. So there I was trying to do that. And then he won. And because of the nature of our work, it was this blind pass off. So all of a sudden now I'm 26 years old, and I'm not just interim filling in behind the curtain. I am now stepping into this role. And so quickly, as I sort of got into the role, I realized, A, I have no idea what I'm doing at this level. Like, this is insane. And B, it's something that I call the glass cliff. What's a glass cliff? We hear about glass ceiling. Women can't go beyond a certain point. What's a glass cliff? A glass cliff is when someone gets put into a position of power when things are right at the edge. And it was exactly that. So all of a sudden, there's all this public information coming out. There's different issues with the business, and there's creditors calling. And here I am thinking, what the heck? And so my family and everyone around me says, well, you just walk away. Like, you don't need to deal with this. And I actually, at the time, I was having my first child as well. So I was pregnant with my first son. And so it seemed the best case scenario, go and, you have your baby and you find another job. And call it a day and don't get involved. But something in me, and this is this spirit, this is this connection to something that I have had my whole life. Something in me said, nope, you're going to do it. You're going to figure it out, and you are going to step into the role. It was given to you. The circumstance is what it is. You would never be here without the circumstance being the way it is. Let's be honest. So this is the card you're dealt. So what are you going to do? So I ended up having my child. A few weeks later, went down to meet with my predecessor, and I said, hey, this is kind of a messed up situation. It's not looking too good. I would like 50% ownership of the management company, which means I'm taking on 50% of the liability of the debt that's here. And I would like a chance to try and restructure and figure it out.
Wow.
But I won't do it without some ownership, some skin in the game. And so everyone around me said, well, this is a crazy idea because you are taking on now, like this, now you are liable for this. And I did it. And as I said, I was good at sales. And so I restructured our partnerships. I turned it into a national organization from a Toronto-based platform. And over those years, we started to fill the gaps and fill the holes. And it was a really interesting role to be in because I really had no credibility to be there other than I got in the way that I did. I hired a bunch of young women so that I could be a leader of someone and they could see something in me because I don't know.
Yeah.
And we started to do our work. And the goal was to keep, the standard of the events and everything just as what it was, or if not better. And we turned it into a social enterprise eventually. So I ended up buying out the other 50% in a couple of years when things got successful. And then I created a not-for-profit arm. And so the 100 events that we were doing through the Economic Club of Canada, like I said, hosting these world leaders and business executives, all the ticket sales and the sponsorship beyond operational costs would go into our not-for-profit platform. And we've worked with over 50,000 youth doing business and financial literacy programs. And this is what happened. So I just ended up in a really, really interesting spot that's led me to some really interesting work.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you really you did a completely different direction with that company to go the social piece in particular. It sounds
in terms of the way it was structured on the front end of the economic club side, and this is where conscious economics comes in.
Yeah.
On the front end, that business didn't really change. It was still the same kinds of leaders coming in. It was the same caliber of events. It was what I was doing with the resources and how I was putting those resources towards this other work. And so this brings me to where conscious economics comes in. In 2017, it was Canada's 150th birthday. But we know that many Indigenous communities, that's not such a celebration. That's sort of 150 years of colonization.
Absolutely.
And so we wanted to do something important. We had just been working in the Arctic regions of Canada and been traveling and working with our Inuit youth. And so we decided, let's do a reconciliation program where we bring youth from all across the territory of Nunavut, which is a very large territory, spans all kinds of provinces. So it's huge landmass. And let's bring some youth from Ontario, from, our urban center, and let's go up and live on the land in Nunavut for the first half of the program. Let's bring these youth that would never, ever come together. And let's start talking about the issues and let's find where we have common ground, because common ground is what we need in order to build these new systems. So we were up in the Arctic. And again, this is what I call my second awakening experience in my life. So we were up there, and while I was there for the first couple of days, I felt this connection to the land, this connection to myself, this connection to God like never before.
Wow.
It was beautiful. It was pristine. It was sunny. And the youth were getting, so enthralled with each other and learning so much. And I just felt so much power. And on the fourth day, while we were supposed to go back into the main, so we were out living on the land and then going to go back into the main city and then have our second part, which was all of us coming back to Toronto.
Wow.
And having our second portion of the camp for the second week in the urban center.
And bringing people with you to Toronto.
So we all
from there.
got to go up there, and then it was called North Meets South. And so as we're getting ready to leave on this final day to go back into our, main lodge in the city center in Iqaluit and then leave the next day, this big storm comes in. The sky turns green. It's the creepiest looking thing I've ever seen. And the energy of it, I just felt something big is coming. And it was. So it's the second highest tide in the world. People don't realize this. We're up in the Arctic, ocean. And the expedition team said, we can't take the boats in that got us to the mainland. We're going to have to be airlifted out. But because it's such a small community, there's only one helicopter. It can only fit 6 people at a time. We were 50 with all of us. And so it was this whole piece. So I said, okay, we're going to figure it out. We're going to have to get everyone into certain groups, and we're going to have to do this all day coming back and forth. And we were supposed to leave already, so we'd run out of supplies. And then just as I'm getting everyone kind of organized and trying to keep my calm, he comes back and says, the helicopter can't even, it's the winds are too strong. It's not going to work. So I said, well, what do we do? Well, a 50-foot boat of a fisherman in town said he's willing to try and come do the rescue. And this was the language. And I thought, what the heck have I gotten myself into now? Like, this is beyond anything I could have imagined. So the fishermen ended up waiting for the tide to come in, took the 50-foot boat. We had to take little boats, jump onto this other boat, get on. It was extremely scary. And in that moment when we got on the boat, I thought, okay, we've made it. It's okay. We're going to get through this. People started getting sick. It was, 9-foot swells, but I thought we're going to make it until, people talk about a near-death experience and they say they kind of get a flash of their life. So I started to have this all of a sudden. Even though I'm on the boat, I start to experience this life review. Like I'm seeing everything from when I was born to all the decisions that have led me up to this point. And then I hear this little voice come in and it says, are you going to stay or are you going to go? And I thought, what the heck? And I mean, this is happening all very fast, but I said, I'm going to stay. And just as I said that, an anchor that was up connected came and just missed my head by an inch. So it could have just killed me. And so it wasn't that the boat was going to sink. It was that this thing was there. And that was just an unbelievable. So the resounding message, I mean, we were all very sick and traumatized and all the things. We ended up still running the rest of the program. Everyone was okay. Some people had to go to the hospital, but everyone was okay. But when I got home, I couldn't shake what had happened. And I knew that I had deeper changes that I had to make as an individual. And I knew that I had deeper work to do. And I didn't know what it was, but I continued to sort of follow my guidance, follow in my meditation and my prayer, follow the messages that I was receiving. And the message really was conscious economics. And I was like, what is conscious economics? But conscious economics, we think of, like I said in the beginning, business, the economy being this place of hurt, of pain, of greed, of despair, of all of that. And really what an economy is it's an expression of our value system as a society. And so consciousness is just another word for awareness, a deeper awareness. If we bring that deeper awareness into the way we think about these systems, what could be? And if that awareness isn't just what's in our minds, but actually connecting into what our hearts have to say and the wisdom of this part of ourselves, what would we build there? And so this is the spirit of conscious economics. It's this understanding that we can build something that is more compassionate, that is more creative, that is more equitable. But it starts with us finding in ourselves, where are we holding the belief that that's not possible? Where are we, articulating that pain point out into the world? And how do we heal within ourselves to transform an economy? So these are some of the big questions and some of the work that we've now started to set out on.
Incredible. Oh my gosh, I got like a zillion questions. But let's go back to when you were 15 for a second.
Yeah.
How did those goals then that you were gifted? How did they connect in with this? How did what were those goals
the goal really there at 15 was I knew that I needed to get off the track that I was on. But I will say, and I don't want to sugarcoat that, when you're making a big life transformation, you take steps. And the step that I took, because I was very much involved in some drugs and some different things that weren't going very well, the step I took was I'm going to get myself back into school. But I had terrible anxiety and I had terrible, things that I was dealing with from some of what I was exposed to from those years of being in the situation I was in. And so when that started to bubble up, I didn't know where to go or what to turn to. And so again, I started to use alcohol. And so I was going to school, doing great, but I was drinking to be able to deal and handle with things. And I say that very honestly because you don't go from being in the situation that I explained to going over here and it's all perfect and then it's a perfect story. And so again, when you hear my story, you'll hear a lot of drive. You'll hear, wow, you've taken these risks. You've done all of these different things. But there is always another side to those pieces. And so in the 2017 awakening, what I really needed to do was to walk a sober path. And so this was where I made the final release of, I'm not going to run from my anxiety. I'm not going to run from the things that have happened to me. I'm going to bravely face them, but I'm going to face them with my greater power beside me, and I'm going to transform that way. And so that is a really interesting thing to talk about. And we all struggle in different ways. And I think that sometimes when we hear really cool stories like this, we think, oh, this person's got it all figured out. Nobody has it all
Yeah.
figured out,
Yeah.
is the truth. But we do have these parts of ourselves, these higher parts of ourselves that we can access, and we can start to build that relationship with that part of ourselves, where we can start to walk as that part of ourselves. And so this is the journey I'm on now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love how you've named that, like, because it's an amazing story. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
were talking earlier, isn't it cool when you look back at your story and God has you amazed at your own story in some ways, right? Like,
100%.
that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
reflection. That's the power of reflection. But I love that you've also named that, as good as this sounds, there were some challenges along the
Oh,
way.
yeah.
Because I wonder, as a 26-year-old leader and a female leader, we want to talk about just the role of women, how we can all work towards continuing to move in what we believe is the absolute right direction
Yeah.
around equality.
Mm-hmm.
But as a 26-year-old young female leader,
Yeah.
my guess is you needed to exhibit a confidence,
Oh, yeah.
right? But down deep, like okay. So
Huge.
yeah. So
Yeah.
what were you experiencing down deep? Maybe those things that back then you realized I didn't want anybody to know that, even if I knew that, or even if I wasn't
Exactly.
quite aware of it yet, what was
Yeah.
going on. And then how did you transform, or how did God transform and transition that to what you did?
Yeah.
Because my guess is for a lot of us, well, let's face it, it doesn't matter what age, what gender, what sexual orientation,
Mm-hmm.
we all experience that
Yes.
as human beings.
Yes, we do.
Probably most days, if most are being honest. But
I
yeah, like
agree.
that
Yeah.
confidence, that amazing leadership that you were so able to offer. How
Mm-hmm.
did you get there
Yeah.
with the realities of just human insecurities and all those kinds
Thank
of things that
you.
we all deal with?
Thank you for that invitation to speak about that, because it is such a big part of
Mhm.
it. And in the beginning, this whole story that I've shared with you right now, I wasn't publicly sharing that story. Of
Mhm.
course not. I was trying to blend in. I was trying to fit in, and I didn't fit in. I stood out like a sore thumb, because not only was I, a woman in this role, that we were still in a very male dominated
Mhm.
space in terms of upper financial services and everything else, but I was really young. And so, and I, even now, my voice sounds young. So I tried to disguise myself. If I'm really, I got fake glasses. I don't need glasses. You can look back to newspaper articles and Google and see me in these glasses going around. I was trying to make myself dress a certain way. I was really trying to hide myself. And what I found is I was hidden. I was overlooked. I was sort of at the table, but I wasn't actually at the table. People would kind of speak over me. I didn't feel like I had any handle or grasp on any of it. And it finally got so exhausting trying to be somebody else, trying to pretend that I hadn't experienced the things that I experienced. And so I don't know what came over me, but eventually I got just tired with my own self and tired with perpetuating the biases that I felt other
Yeah.
people were putting. I was acting them out as if they were true. And I just thought, it's a unique situation. I know that I'm really darn good at my job and that I've gotten myself here. No one else needs to know the whole story at this point, but I know it.
Mhm.
So I need to use this opportunity, and I need to be able to think about all the young women that are going to come behind me, that if I've set a new ground, that maybe next time somebody walks into a boardroom that doesn't look like it, there will be a new precedent set. And so I
Love it.
dropped the phony nonsense. I started to be very, very in my own identity and authenticity, talking about my struggles as a young person. And that's why I started the Junior Economic Club, because I was like, I've got all this privilege now. I have access to all this power, all these people that have so much influence, but I know where I came from. I know who I was. And I know that there's so many other young people that are probably feeling just like me, not a part of it, not seeing their through line into how they could participate, not seeing how do we make a change when we haven't witnessed that change or transformation or seen someone that looks like us in that space. And so as I opened up that work, it started to open up something in me that I realized I'm here for a purpose. I'm here to use this. This is a gift. This gift of feeling like you don't belong. Well, maybe you're not supposed to belong. Maybe you're here to change it. And so once I started to do that, it wasn't that anyone else had changed, but I changed. And as I changed, people started to treat me differently. People started to take me more seriously. They started to really want to know my story. How did you end up here? And what's this all about? And people wanted to support it. And again, with, all the young women that were behind this big business platform, because we were a group of young women running this, and we started to change the discourse in the country. We thought, if we don't have to just do what we think people want, of course we'll give them what they want, but if we're here in this position, what do we want to hear, be spoken about on the platform? So we started to slowly transition the conversation that, the Economic Club is not just about monetary policy and bankers. It's about the well-being of our people and planet and reconciliation and equity and all of these other themes. And it really started to feel really special. I can't explain it. I'll cry if I think about it, because there's nothing like that. Yeah.
And the world needs that. Eh?
The world needs us all to be ourselves
yeah.
and to not have shame in the hard things we've gone through, because we will continue to go through different things, but there is nothing to be ashamed of. There really isn't. And so that's why I tell that part of the story. That's why I share so candidly.
Absolutely.
Because, we all have parts of ourselves that we want to hide away.
Yeah.
But when we embrace that we're a full spectrum and that we're loved no matter what, and we're here for a purpose no matter what, that transforms the world. That energy transforms the world.
And amazing how you actually were able to thrive so much more when you were just okay with just being you,
It's so much easier
and what
to
an
be
important
you.
message for people to hear, because it's so hard to be somebody else.
It's so much work. It's so much work. It's exhausting.
And the deeper things, the acceptance of oneself that comes with that, let alone you have a greater acceptance of others too, because you want them to be nobody but just themselves as well.
Exactly.
And you create this culture and atmosphere that it's transformational no matter what your business or operation or organization is about. I absolutely agree. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Now with the shift in the role of economics from a money making piece to a social consciousness, like that's so at the heart of what you're doing and the vision that God has blessed you with. I really deeply appreciate that. In fact, in Scripture, people think it says that money is the root of all evil, but it actually says the love of money is the root of all evil. And going back to something you said earlier, it's about what we do with the economy. It's what we do with the resources that we're blessed to
100%.
receive and to bring in. How has that? That's a huge shift. My sense is some would be all over the top excited about that, but some maybe not so much, not even get it. So what's that? Yeah, what's that been like? What's the response to that been like as you move forward, that vision forward? And with different kinds of people.
100%. So I think it's been a mixed reaction, of course.
For sure.
And I think that when I launched this was pre-pandemic. I really think the business community thought I might have lost it a little bit. Like I was going out on this ledge that was like, what is this? Where is she going with this now? And what's happening? And, let's get back to business. But what's so interesting is how life really works and how God works. And God always does have a plan. And so when we fast forward to now, people are much more receptive to thinking about how we can transform and how we can change. And so, like we said, in every difficult moment is also an opportunity. And that's really hard and deep when we think about what we've been through right now and the people we've lost and the different challenges we face. But it is a ripe opportunity for a new, sublimely different way to think about it. And so when I think about money, I think of money as a neutral. It's a neutral element that we give value to. It's the way we work with it in society. And what I really think is that there's a lot of people generationally that haven't been able to experience what it feels like to have that kind of currency in their possession. They've been told that will never happen for them. And they've been actually told to kind of hate it or stay away from it because they've seen the pain and the suffering that it's caused. And I was very much the same. When I started earning more money, because of the household I grew up in, because of, my mom was in an abusive relationship growing up and money was sort of why she had to stay from what I heard as a kid. So I didn't like money either. So when it started coming into my life in the beginning, I wanted to keep giving it all out, but to be back in that deficit position because that's what I felt I deserved. And that's what I felt was comfortable. And so one of the first things that we do, because I spent a lot of years doing financial literacy and we're talking about saving and investing. And you know what I realized? It doesn't work because you can learn all of those things and you can still behave in a completely different way. So what we do now is actually financial therapy. And we are democratizing access to financial therapy, meaning that we have an emotional relationship with money. just as we do with everything else. We've got beliefs and values that are instilled in us, whether they be through society's lens or whether it's something that happened in your childhood or your household. And so we got to know what's down there before we can start to even imagine creating a more conscious understanding of what it is. The other piece is that money is not the only currency in this economy. And one of the, so what are the other currencies? Our health and our well-being, which we've just seen through this pandemic, is probably one of the most important currencies. Look what happens when something puts that health and well-being at risk. An economy globally gets shut down. So health and well-being being a currency that we need to start to value just as equally as we do the monetary exchange. Understanding that sustainability for our planet, the land that we stand on, that's a currency. How do we protect that? How do we ensure that that currency is invested in so that it's there for future generations? What about creativity? Without creativity, you don't have joy in your life. If you're a creative being. God put us here on the planet to be creators, to be able to connect and build and make things from this higher consciousness, from this state of enlightenment. And so what does that look like, and how can we start to actually work with some of those currencies? So these are not things that I know and I this is the way it is and it's only that, because it's for all of us to build. So I'm just creating a container to have these kinds of conversations, and I'm taking my own lessons that I have experienced through life and my own knowledge of how the system and the economy works, which I did get a front-hand seat at over a decade of being at the helm of the Economic Club of Canada. I understand how the system works, but I also understand what's been missing and how everything's kind of interconnected. And sometimes we don't see that. So that's the basis. And it's interesting because we work with all people. So we really are about bringing different generations, different race, religion, culture, all around the same table. And that's that prayer of unity that I think we're really being asked to walk right now in this time.
Absolutely. So, and that also could be a very different leadership style than some who have worked traditionally in the economic circles would be used to. Like, I just love the collaborative nature of what you're talking about, creating that space where we all can come together and put our creativity, our energy, our resiliency, our ideas, all of it together. What's that been like, and how has that been received? And just a little bit about how you lead. I think that's unique to what you're doing as well.
I think that the way I lead is based on me knowing that I don't know everything and that I really haven't. And so it's this idea of taking the traditional hierarchy. I'm making a little triangle shape right now for those listening on audio, and flipping it down into the circle and saying, how do we actually equalize the contributions? We're all going to be better at some things and be able to contribute at different capacities, but how can we actually work? And I've done a lot of work with Indigenous leaders and Indigenous elders all across the country and in other parts of the world. And one thing that's talked about a lot is this prophecy, this idea that there will be a time on the planet where all of us will have to come together. And I really do feel like we're witnessing that right now, that each of us, each race, each religion, we all hold a little piece of the puzzle. And that if we can actually come together, we can form something new and spectacular. And that is the will of our Creator coming through us, which is really beautiful. And so our tagline at Conscious Economics is co-creating the new economy radically with love. Because we use love as the medicine. We use acceptance as the medicine. And that's where, the idea of healing comes in. We have economic healing sessions. They're free every month. Anyone can join with our in-house financial therapist. And they get to come and unpack some of these things, because we can't form something new without dealing with what we're holding on to and what we're perpetuating ourselves. So it's really interesting to see how that co-creation has allowed us to grow so much more quickly, been able to, inspire us to work with other like-minded organizations and invite more people in, and it takes the pressure off.
Absolutely.
Because leadership on your own in a tiny little, chamber by yourself, well, it stinks. Like, no one wants to do that. I certainly don't. So if we're going to be able to sustain the momentum we need with all the challenges we're being presented in our life, we have to be able to rely on each other. So I think that is the new economy leadership. And I really see young people, and in particular women, really embracing this again and understanding that, especially for us women, the way it's been set up as moms and what has been expected within work, it's really not been working so well. And so we need to actually readjust even our model of what we think work is and how we show up to work. And all of these things are on the table.
Yeah. Well, friends, what an amazing person. It's just I was amazed to hear at where God had brought her at age 26 to be leading an organization like that, and just the way the circumstances sort of happened that she fell into this role. But I love the humility and the grace and the realness. Obviously, someone very accomplished, someone who has incredible drive and resolve, but also very real to acknowledge that there's times where it's hard to be confident, and we have self-doubt and those kinds of things. So just really appreciate who Rhiannon is, and incredible the way that God kept working in her life at these different stages. That moment when she was 15, when she was 26, and it just continues on. You're going to hear that again next week, friends, as we continue this conversation with Rhiannon. Really hope you can join us. We're going to go deep on some stuff that you're going to find, I think, transformational and inspirational. So hope to see you again next week for part 2. Friends, don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Good News with Jamie Holtum. God bless you.